Hello, everyone. I'm Marty Rasmussen with Action Coach, and I am pleased to introduce you to a wonderful woman that has a tremendous background that is going to surprise you in many ways because of the depth of her experience, but more importantly, to help unveil some of the things that we as retail shoppers probably have no idea it happens behind the scenes. So I want to welcome Julie Lassow to the interview today. Julie, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Marty, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just want everybody to give everybody just a little bit of background. I think they're going to be excited to hear what you have to share today. But Julie comes from a background of large scale retail, and she is today in a private consulting practice that she owns and runs herself. She's a professional speaker, she's a writer and author. I like the title aspiring planet saver, which is fantastic. And like I said in our earlier conversation, our planet needs a lot of saving right now. So hopefully we'll surround you with some of our audience that want to do that same thing. But anyway, Julie founded JHL Solutions, which is a very unique consultancy that is dedicated to helping build phenomenal private label partnerships between various suppliers of many different sizes, as well as partnering them with giant retailers and everywhere in between. So we're going to go ahead and get started, Julie. And so I've got one question that I'd like to start with. I just think your background is really fascinating to me. I'd like to hear about your journey. So can you tell us where this all started?
I'd be happy to. Well, funny enough, like you, Marty, I'm Minneapolis based. And for me, my professional journey started right up the road at Target Corporation. I started there in 2000, so 20 plus years ago now, and was always in the merchandising space. I worked in the inventory planning space. I worked in the buying space, as well as inventory, and then finance, negotiations, and then sourcing. So what that really means for those of you who aren't fully vested in the world of retail meant that I had the opportunity to figure out how much of an assortment to buy, what stores to send it to. In part of my jobs, I was responsible for figuring out what should go on the shelves, helping design those products and really think through what would delight our guests the most. But the jobs that I absolutely loved the most were really in that sourcing and negotiation space. And that opportunity really allowed me to work with Target's owned brand matrix, or their private label matrix. Of the products you can only buy at Target are made by a collection of very, very strong vendor partners. And my job was to find and understand if those partners would be a good fit for Target, help them onboard to Target's processes. As a corporate retailer, Target can be a little challenging to navigate from the outside looking in. We'd also negotiate with those suppliers and then oversee the execution, just ensuring that the product that we developed together, negotiated, landed on the shelves and performed just as we were hoping it to when our guests took it home. And in that space of sourcing and partnership, you really learn a lot about how to work collaboratively as an internal team, collaboratively as an external team. You learn a lot of the value of communication and problem solving. And those are things that I've also always found a lot of personal satisfaction in. And it was a really great fit from a professional perspective to really have that be the core of my business. And when I stepped out of Target in 2017, so more than 6 years ago now, it was an opportunity for me to continue to focus on deepening that partnership, building value, problem solving in that way, which was something that I found incredibly energizing and was able to put together a lot of the skills that I built at Target into that business. A piece that I layered into, you touched on earlier, I had to smile when you talked about the aspiring planet saver, is a focus on sustainability and really helping my retail clients and their partners show up and have a more positive impact on the places where their products are made, the communities where their products are sold, and ultimately the environment which those products are used and disposed of by their customers. And that came to me as I worked at Target. Target's got a phenomenal commitment to sustainability, and it's continued to grow and evolve over the last few years, much like any retailer. Many companies around the world are focusing on that now. But when I was at Target, while I feel like we did the absolute best that we could, I really started to build a feeling of what I like to call green guilt, over time. I worked in
Mm.
the seasonal area, and if you're familiar with Target stores, think of the back of the store where you can buy Christmas trees or string lights or Easter baskets. A lot of
Yeah.
those products are only used for a few weeks, a few days, and sometimes even just a few hours. And I struggled with the fact that a lot of those products often would end up in a landfill right after they're being used by the consumer. And like I said, I used a part of that guilt to fuel the passion around helping to change that course for retail, and really helping retail tread a more positive path when it came to production and consumption and use of consumer goods.
Wow. Wow, that's fascinating. That's interesting. That's one of those kind of super double secrets, right? That a lot of people don't see, kind of behind the curtain, which is what you were sharing with me earlier. So that's, I see where that could really wake a person up, right, as to what happens to our planet, with us, most of us being totally unaware. Well, so fascinating background and very extensive in terms of the different areas and responsibilities that you had kind of through part of that, a big part of the supply chain, the behind the scenes supply chain part. And so obviously that gives you a real advantage, I would think, in the marketplace in your consultancy. Tell us a little bit about where you are, your journey is today.
I'm happy to. As I mentioned, am very focused on partnering with retailers, and as they're deepening their partnerships with their suppliers to bring amazing products to life. I've refined that work over time. When I stepped outside of Target, I knew the type of work I love to do. I knew the value and impact that I wanted to have, but I wasn't crystal clear on how to actually package that and offer it in a way that would be of value to someone and be able to talk about the impact. So today the work is it comes in a couple of different forms. I work in strategic partnerships. So whether that's executive coaching and retainer partnerships, or building out the strategies for deepening and building out those partnerships within the retailer and the supplier partnership space. And then I also do a fair amount of negotiation strategy specifically, and build out the tools that help support that work. So what are our priorities? What do we need to achieve? Whether those are financial metrics, performance metrics for the suppliers, and then how do we really value and quantify that impact? And to me, that's just another layer to the problem solving to help make sure that what we're getting in terms of partnership and offers from the suppliers is truly meeting that strategic priority that we've outlined, and that we have identified and are able to outline the tangibles, both the financial and the non-financial impacts of those agreements.
Fascinating. Um, so I want to talk in a minute a little bit about kind of who your target audience would be. But before we do that, where do you take this? Where does this go? Where does your journey go over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
Well, I've moved out of that very, very early startups phase and foundation building phase, still in growth phase, happily. As we navigate this COVID response world, retail continues to be highly dynamic. And so there's a lot of opportunity for partnerships and support. When I think about the next 3 to 5 years, for me, it's all about prioritizing those offerings in a way that continues to add more and impactful value. So how do I scale the work that I'm doing? How do I deepen the partnerships that I have, certainly, and continue to grow those partnerships, both from a client perspective and who I'm able to serve, but then who I'm also able to work with, so that I can show up to my clients and in some cases bring a partner or two to the table that offers a more complete skill set and a broader offering than what I'm able to be able to do on my own.
Okay, fascinating. So tell us a little bit about kind of your target audience. So, I mean, a lot of the people that are listening and watching you today are going to be looking for a couple different things. One, how could they potentially be one of the partners within the strategic partnerships that you develop and curate? But also, what is kind of the target that but what is it that you're looking for specifically to help bring people together?
So from a client perspective, my target partnerships would be retailers primarily. So I work across mass and specialty retailers. I've been fortunate enough to work with groups such as Petco, CVS, some regional grocers throughout the country, as well as continuing some partnerships with my target colleagues who have dispersed throughout a lot of the retail organization, both on the retail side and the supplier side, which has been a lot of fun. In terms of the partners that I work together with, often when I am working to build out a sourcing model support, so if I'm looking on a retailer's behalf to find new suppliers, it's great for me to build connections with teams that have expertise that I might not be as deeply aware of. So I have a strong background in general merchandise. That's where I spent most of my time at Target. I'm building out, as I mentioned, grocery partnerships and expertise. But if there's very deep specialized expertise in certain types of consumer goods and someone is interested in having a conversation about how we could partner or helping to understand what opportunities might be out there in the marketplace, I'd love it if they reached out. And then outside of just product categories, other partners that I'm looking for are ones that are in more of the branding and product development space. I don't develop products myself. I don't develop cohesive brands, but I love partnering with someone who can help bring specifically an own brand to life based on their artistic or engineering expertise. And then QA or quality assurance is another partnership that I have been building, and it would certainly be open to continuing to connect with other people who are experts in the quality assurance space or social compliance space. Those are some deep areas of expertise that I have a working understanding of, but would not have that as my own personal experience or offering that I would bring to the table to support clients.
So I alluded this in our conversation earlier, but maybe I'll just put it up there for this too. I mean, you're not really acting like a single Shark Tank, are you? I mean, in terms of like that kind of startup kind of thing. I mean, are you really looking more for established brands, established products, those that can really that you can then kind of help identify the value of it, and then potentially identify a retailer to work with? Is that a little bit more? Maybe you can clarify that, at least for me.
No, I appreciate that qualifier, Marty. The first group that I talked about are client priorities. That'd be working with mass and specialty. The second group of partnerships that I talked about just a moment ago would be partnerships that more from a peer space. So if someone was also a consultant and wanted to come together to work on a team to help support a client, those are the types of partnerships that I'd love to build within development or quality assurance, as an example. The groups of suppliers that I work with, to your point, are usually more established than a Shark Tank. When it comes to working with some of the mass and specialty retailers across the US, it's a little bit of be careful what you wish for, and understanding that you need to be the right fit and at the right point in your own business development, business journey to be able to connect and successfully be able to supply and work with a retailer. So it depends on the category. It certainly depends on the retailer, but that's often my first recommendation is to understand what are those retailer requirements from a production perspective, from a quality perspective, design perspective in some cases. And if you feel like you're a right fit for some of those key retailers with the US at this point, that's when I think it starts to make sense to reach out.
Okay, good. I think that's going to be really helpful for not just for me, but for the people that are watching the interview as well, to understand whether there's a good opportunity for you all to get to know each other and develop a networking relationship and that type of thing. So I want to be sensitive to your time, but I do have one more question that I love to ask because I learned so much out of it, but I know the listeners do too. If you were to look back on your journey that we've been talking about, I mean, you came out of kind of big, safe, long-term professional position with Target, and now you've been out on your own for the past 6 years since 2017. And what I mean, first of all, as far as the transition went, did you learn anything there? And is there anything during the last 6 years you've learned that maybe we could shorten the learning curves of some of the people that are watching? What would you like to share about that part of your journey specifically?
Well, to answer one of the questions you asked specifically, yes, I've learned an incredible amount. When I stepped outside of Target, I was incredibly naive. Uh, I've said this more than once, but I equated starting a consultancy on a level of difficulty that was pretty similar to setting up a lemonade stand on my corner. I just thought that was the most straightforward business you could possibly set up. But I was incredibly naive in not only understanding how to offer value outside of a corporate organization, because you're offering in a different way. And even just business and entrepreneurship, there's a lot that I learned in that process. So what I would offer to your audience to help shortcut their journey and not take quite the route that I did was really be thoughtful about, as you're networking early on, recognize that yes, you're going to have to network to build out your client base and in the business development elements, but be really thoughtful on curating the network that you build from a peer relationship perspective and a mentor relationship perspective. I wouldn't be on the screen or having this conversation with you today, Marty, if it hadn't been for the very, very great deal of generosity that I was able to receive through my network of, as I mentioned, peers and mentors that I've built up even before I left Target, but certainly since I left Target. So that would be the first piece of advice, is just to think about how you're networking to help build your own support system. And then I think you'll smile when I answer the second piece of this question, but I would say the other essential piece for me on my entrepreneurial journey was working with a coach and being very self-reflective and thinking through and understanding what was the biggest professional developmental opportunity I had, and finding the coach that was the right fit for me to help really shortcut that learning and hopping over whether that was a hurdle or deepening expertise. That's been pretty game changing for me, and that's something I'd recommend for most people.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I appreciate that. And just so the audience knows, we don't have a coaching relationship, so
Oh.
this was totally on Julie's part and a pleasant surprise. But we believe that as at X Coach, I mean, we coach, over 1 million people in our history over the past 30 years around the world. But so we believe that any entrepreneur or business owner should be surrounded by a handful of advisors, and you use the word mentors, right? So from attorneys and accountants and a coach, we believe that the coach is really one of those key advisors to be able to help businesses not only up and running, but more importantly, to take them to the next level. So you've got a believer, at least on my side, but that's of course what I do for a living. So anyway, well, that's really helpful. So appreciate you sharing that, because I think those are two good pieces of advice. Well, with that, to kind of wrap up, one of the questions I have, would you be open if somebody in the audience would be interested in speaking to you? If you're open to them reaching out to you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, first, yes, please do reach out. I'm happy to chat retail. I'm happy to talk about my journey from a corporate space to a consulting space and business ownership. You can reach out to me. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you'll see my name and spelling in the title of the podcast, of course, but it's Juli Lassow, Lassow. Or you can go to jhl-solutions.com. There's a fair amount about the work that I do, the value that's important to me, that what I love about retail. So you can learn a little bit more about my business and how I support sustainability efforts as able. And you would also are able to reach out to me. So it's Juli at JHL Solutions. Feel free to email me as well. But those are the three easiest ways to either get a hold of me
Sounds great.
or learn a little bit more about my approach.
Sounds great. And just for the audience, I really want to encourage you to go to our website. I was commenting in our first conversation with Julie that it's a beautiful website, beautiful example of just nice, clean, concise, but more importantly, it has the content that explains exactly who she is and what she does. And there's a lot of lessons for many people out there when it comes to website development that could learn some lessons in this one. So great job with that. Awesome. Well,
I
thank you
appreciate
again
that.
for your time.
Thank you. I
What's
certainly
that?
have help on the site. As I mentioned, I've got a really phenomenal team that I'm happy to share with anyone who wants to reach out and learn more about that. But I do appreciate the compliment, and it's been a lot of fun getting to that point. But I can promise you, on the first day that JHL Solutions was incorporated, that site did not exist. So like everything, you had to build from somewhere.
Yeah, from setting up the corporation to getting the business filed. I mean, the list goes on and on. So that's why I was kind of curious how your transition from big say, corporate went to wild, crazy cowboy land of entrepreneurialism. So this is good. But well, Julie, thank you for joining us. I'm confident that the audience is going to get a lot out of this conversation, and I'm also confident that several people are going to reach out to you, and I hope they do, because this is about building community and network. And so, thank you for joining us, and I look forward to continuing to have further conversations with you myself. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us. Thank you, audience, for joining us as well. Marty Rasmussen from Action Coach, and we look forward to our next interview down the road. So thank you.